You ever have one of those moments where your whole life splits in two? Mine came on a Wednesday. Middle of the week, middle of my life. Just another ordinary day, until it wasn't. My name's David Callahan. 41 years old. I work in supply logistics for a furniture company just outside Kansas City. Nothing fancy. I get up early, make my own coffee, pack my own lunch, and drive the same beat-up Ford F-150 I've had since college. I've been married to my wife, Emily, for 16 years. Sweet girl. Grew up in the same town. Works as a nurse part-time, and keeps the house cleaner than a church pew on Easter. People always said we were the solid ones. The couple that had it figured out. We went to barbecues together, smiled for Christmas cards, made meatloaf on Mondays, and fought about which way the toilet paper roll should hang. That kind of life. But here's the truth. Sometimes the quietest houses are the ones hiding the loudest lies. It started with a cigarette. I don't smoke. Never have. My dad died of lung cancer when I was a kid, and the smell alone makes my stomach turn. But last Wednesday, I found a half-smoked menthol wedged in the dirt just outside the window of our laundry room. Emily doesn't smoke either. That's when the itch started. That gnawing feeling in the back of my neck, like something was off-kilter and pretending to be straight. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe a neighbor tossed it, or a friend stopped by. Maybe nothing. But it stuck in my head, like a pebble in your boot, small, annoying, and impossible to ignore. I didn't say anything to Emily that night. She was folding towels and humming along to some old Taylor Swift song, barefoot in the kitchen like always. I watched her for a second longer than usual. The way her hair fell across her cheek, how easily she smiled. I wanted so badly for that cigarette to mean nothing. But deep down, I already knew it did. 2 days later, I left work early. Told my boss I had a dentist appointment. I don't even remember why I said that. I just needed to see it for myself. When I pulled into our driveway at 2:13 p.m., the house was quiet. Emily's car was gone. That didn't mean much. She could have been running errands. But I had a feeling, and when you've been married as long as I have, you learn to trust those. I parked a few blocks down, out of sight, and waited. An hour later, a car I didn't recognize, a black Nissan Maxima, windows tinted dark, pulled into my driveway like it belonged there. I watched a man get out. Maybe early 40s, athletic build, gray at the temples. He walked up to the front door, didn't knock, and used a key. A key. I sat there frozen. Heart thudding so hard I felt it in my teeth. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just watched. 30 minutes passed. Then 40. Then an hour. By the time the guy came back out, I had memorized the shape of his shoulders. The smug slouch in his walk. The way he adjusted his belt like he was proud of something. He didn't see me. Emily came home a half hour after he left. She carried groceries like nothing had happened. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay next to her in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her breathing. I thought about how many times I'd kissed her forehead while she was half asleep. How many lies had nestled between those moments. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. Because if I was going to burn down the life we built, I wanted to make damn sure the ashes told a story no one could ignore. Over the next few days, I watched. I followed. I took pictures. I pretended to work late and drove around aimlessly with a camera tucked under my seat and Payne riding shotgun. I learned his name was Marcus. He worked at a law firm across town. Divorced. 2 kids in college. And he'd been seeing Emily for at least 3 months. They had a routine. Mondays at his place. Thursdays at ours. Sometimes weekends if I was out of town. They were careful, but not careful enough. I started writing it all down. Dates, times, license plates. I created a folder on a thumb drive labeled Truth. I couldn't bring myself to open it without shaking. I became two men. One who brought his wife roses on Fridays and rubbed her feet while watching crime shows. The other who sat in a dark truck outside Marcus's condo, imagining the things I couldn't unsee. I wasn't stupid. I knew I had options. Divorce. Confrontation. Yelling, crying, therapy, blame. But none of those felt right. Not for what she did. Not for how she smiled at me with the same lips that kissed him. I needed something else. Something final. Something unforgettable. And I knew just where to begin. I always thought that if I ever faced betrayal, I would just walk away. I would grab my things, slam the door, maybe shout a few words, and that would be it. But when you're actually in that situation, everything works differently. Betrayal creeps into you like cold. Slowly. To the bone. The next day, I got up earlier than usual. I made coffee. I sat on the porch, looking at the street where nothing was happening, and started thinking. Really thinking. Revenge isn't anger. Real revenge is silence. A plan. Patience. It's not when you scream, it's when you smile. I remembered something I once read. People who smile in the face of their enemies always win. So that's how I started. With a smile. For a week, I was the perfect husband. I cooked dinner. I asked her how her day was. I even suggested we go to Wisconsin to visit her parents for the weekend. She looked at me with warmth in her eyes, as if everything was normal. As if nothing was happening. And I wrote everything down. On the second Friday, when I knew she was going to Marcus's, I left an envelope on the table. Empty. No note. Just to see her reaction. When I got home, it was still there. But I noticed she was tense all evening. She looked at me as if she suspected something. Great. That's a start. I started making copies. Videos from surveillance cameras. I installed them myself, discreetly, in the hallway, in the bedroom, even in the garage. Photos from the parking lot outside Marcus's office, audio recordings of her phone conversations, which I intercepted using an old tablet connected to our Wi-Fi network. I put it all in one file. I named it simply Emily. But that wasn't revenge yet. It was preparation. The real thing started on Monday. I invited Marcus to lunch. Yes, in person. I wrote to him from a fake account under the name Josh, a fictional client who needed a lawyer. We agreed to meet at a cozy cafe near his office. He arrived on time. Sharp, neat. The typical winner in life. He didn't know who he was talking to. I sat 2 tables away, watching him. I waited for the waiter to bring him his latte with almond milk, and only then did I send him a message. Good coffee, huh? You know, I wonder who you're meeting on Thursdays? He looked up sharply. He looked around. His face turned pale. I got up and left while he was still digesting the message. That night, I held Emily close to me as if nothing had happened. She whispered to me, "You've been so attentive lately." I nodded. Of course I had. I was going to destroy her world, and I wanted her to enjoy the last few quiet days before the storm. The next day, I stopped by to see an old friend, Joe. We had worked together in a warehouse 10 years ago. Now he was into surveillance cameras, and was, to put it mildly, not averse to the idea of taking justice into his own hands. I showed him some of the footage. He watched. Then he looked at me. "What are you going to do?" I replied simply, "Everything." Some men want revenge fast. Loud. Explosive. Not me. I wanted her to feel it. Not all at once, but slow. Like ice cracking underfoot, one step at a time until it drops you into the dark. I started with her comfort. Emily loved her routines. Morning coffee at 7:15, favorite oat creamer, 2 stevia packets, cinnamon on top. Every morning. Like clockwork. So I swapped the creamer for a nearly identical bottle. Same brand, different expiration date. Slightly sour. She noticed on day 3. "Something's off with this," she said, frowning. "Did they change the formula?" I just shrugged. "Maybe." Next, I started planting little seeds of doubt. She'd find the thermostat set 2 degrees lower than she left it. The washing machine paused mid-cycle. Her phone's Bluetooth mysteriously turned off overnight. Nothing major. Just enough to make her feel watched, uneasy. Then came the flowers. She received a bouquet at work on a Friday. 12 roses. Deep red. No note. No sender. She thought they were from me. They weren't. That night, she hugged me a little tighter. I kissed her cheek and whispered, "You deserve everything." She smiled. The next phase was Marcus. I knew where he lived. I knew his routine. I knew what kind of car he drove, and when he took his kids to dinner on Sundays. So one night, I left a small envelope under his windshield wiper. Inside was a single photo, Emily, walking into his place. Timestamped. No note. No message. I knew exactly what that would do. He'd start to wonder. Who was watching? How much did they know? Was it Emily's husband? Or worse, someone who could ruin him professionally? I followed up with a second envelope. This one had 3 photos. Emily leaving his place, Marcus in the background. A printed map with a route highlighted from his condo to my house. And a small typed note. "You don't know who I am, but I know everything about both of you." No threats. Just the kind of message that eats at your mind in silence. That weekend, Marcus canceled on her. I watched her stare at her phone for 15 minutes straight. No call. No text. Just silence. That silence was mine. She started pacing the kitchen. Drinking more wine than usual. Sleeping with her phone under her pillow. And me? I played dumb. Asked if she wanted to try that new Italian place on Main. Made her laugh over dinner. Held her hand on the walk home. She didn't know she was standing on a cliff's edge. The next piece came from the truth folder I built. I printed everything, emails, text logs, photos, even a transcribed call I intercepted between them where she joked about how David's too sweet to ever know. I bundled it all into a thick manila envelope. No name. No return address. Then I mailed it to her father. Strict, God-fearing man. Served in the army. Believes in loyalty, respect, and the 10 Commandments. 3 days later, we got the call. She stepped out of the room to talk. I didn't hear the conversation, but I watched her hands tremble. She didn't speak much that night. Just said she was tired. The cracks were spreading. I could feel them. But I wasn't done yet. The final stage wasn't about pain. It was about humiliation. I reached out to a local podcast producer anonymously, one of those small town secrets shows. Sent them a dramatized version of her story. Different names, slightly changed locations, but the truth at its core. The producer loved it. Said they'd air it in 2 weeks. I smiled. That gave me just enough time to deliver the final blow. I opened the safe in our bedroom. Inside was the one thing Emily valued more than anything, her grandmother's diamond necklace. Family heirloom. She only wore it twice a year, kept it wrapped in silk. I took it. Not to sell it. Not to destroy it. But to let her think Marcus stole it. I left the safe open. When she found it missing, she panicked. She tore the room apart. I helped her look. Called the cops for her. filed the report, gave her comfort. That night, I sat in the garage, in the dark, necklace in my hand, and smiled. I wasn't finished. But she was close. I always imagined that the end of a marriage would feel like an explosion. But in reality, it felt more like a slow leak. Quiet, inescapable. Pressure building behind her eyes, while she tried to hold everything together, not realizing the foundation was already gone. 2 days after the necklace went missing, she started blaming herself. Maybe she left the safe open. Maybe the cleaning lady took it. Maybe she just misplaced it. I didn't correct her. The police filed a report. She cried on the phone to her sister. She barely touched her food. And when she asked me, "Do you think I'm losing it?" I held her hands and said gently, "Of course not." I think that was the first time she was truly afraid. The podcast dropped that Thursday. I didn't tell her, but I watched her listen to it. She was cooking dinner, something simple, stir-fry and frozen dumplings, when her phone buzzed. Her face changed. She stopped stirring, turned pale. I heard the narrator's voice echo from her speaker. A small-town nurse, a married woman, caught in an affair with a lawyer twice divorced, all while her loving husband stayed in the dark. She paused it halfway through, locked herself in the bathroom for an hour. I didn't knock. I didn't ask. She barely spoke that night, just stared at her plate like it held answers. By the next morning, the whispers had begun. One of her coworkers brought it up casually. "Hey, did you hear that crazy story? Sounds like someone around here." Emily laughed it off, but I saw it in her eyes. She knew. She just didn't know how. Then came the second envelope, delivered right to her work, addressed in messy black marker. "For Emily, eyes only." Inside, a USB drive with every file from the Truth folder, labeled, time-stamped, unedited, plus one extra file, a 45-second video from the security camera in our bedroom. The angle wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. It was her, with Marcus. Clear enough. She didn't come home that night. Called me around 11 p.m., voice hollow. "I'm staying in a hotel. I need time." "Of course," I said. "Take all the time you need." And that's when I really got to work. I packed her things. Neatly. Methodically. Folded her clothes into boxes. Labeled them by season. Every drawer, every cabinet, every shelf. Gone. I even left her a card on the counter. "Don't worry, I saved the necklace for you." No signature. Just that. I changed the locks the next morning. Had a locksmith there by sunrise. By the time she returned, 2 days later, with puffy eyes and a stiff jaw, she couldn't even get through the front door. She knocked. I opened it halfway. She looked like a ghost of the woman I married. Pale. Lips trembling. Not angry. Just empty. "I don't understand," she whispered. I handed her the key to the storage unit where I left her boxes. Quietly. No words. Just a key tag with the address and unit number. Then I shut the door. No yelling. No fight. Just silence. A few hours later, I got a call from Marcus. Block number. Voice low. Panicked. "What the hell do you want from us?" I smiled. "Us?" I said. "There is no us. There's you. And there's what you let her turn you into." Then I hung up. That was the last time I heard from either of them. At least, directly. But the echoes? Those stayed. She'd lost her job within the month. The hospital didn't say it outright, but they couldn't afford that kind of publicity. Her father stopped speaking to her. Her friends? Mostly disappeared. Turns out no one wants to stand too close to a scandal when it starts to smell. And me? I was free. No rage. No regret. Just air. Like I could finally breathe again. People always talk about revenge like it's poison. Maybe it is. But sometimes, if you take just the right dose, it becomes the cure. I always thought the hardest part would be the confrontation. It wasn't. The hardest part came after. When the silence settled in. When the days started to look like days again. And I had no one to lie to anymore. You don't realize how much space someone takes up in your life until they're gone. Boxes cleared, toothbrush missing, no shoes by the door. I'd walk into rooms and feel like something was still watching me. But it wasn't her. It was memory. Ghost of routine. I didn't cry. Not once. But I did sit on the porch every night for a week with a beer in hand, staring out at the same lawn I used to mow while she read on the steps. She called once. Just once. Block number again. But I knew it was her. I let it ring out. No voicemail. A week later, I got an email. No subject line. Just one sentence. I never meant to hurt you. I read it. Deleted it. Didn't even feel the sting. What she meant didn't matter anymore. Meaning doesn't change what's done. What's done is done. I focused on rebuilding. Not just the house. Me. I painted the bedroom. Ripped out the old carpet she liked and put in hardwood. Clean, cold, quiet. Every change I made was a way of saying, this was never yours to ruin. I picked up new hobbies. Started running again. Got back into woodwork. Fixed up a bench I'd let rot out behind the shed. I went to the range once or twice. Just to clear my head. Neighbors noticed the change. They stopped asking about Emily. They stopped asking about us. People pretend to be curious, but really, they just want the headline. I never gave it to them. Let the podcast tell the story. And yet, one night, late September, I heard a knock at the door. Soft, hesitant, past midnight. I opened it with the chain still on. There she was. Emily. Thin. Pale. Eyes red. Shoulders hunched like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't say anything. Just looked at me like maybe, somehow, there was still a piece of me left that might let her back in. There wasn't. You need to go, I said. She opened her mouth, tried to speak. Nothing came out. I shut the door. Locked it. Sat down in the kitchen and waited. After 10 minutes, I heard her car start and fade into the distance. I never saw her again after that. But I wasn't completely done with Marcus. See, people like him, they don't really change. They just hide better. I did a little digging. Turns out, he had a client. Young woman. Filed a complaint for inappropriate messages. He'd swept it under the rug. I didn't interfere, not directly. I just mailed the complaint to his ex-wife's attorney. And her new husband. And to a few local media outlets. Didn't sign it. Didn't need to. A month later, Marcus wasn't at the firm anymore. He moved out of town soon after. Poetic. I didn't ruin their lives out of hate. I did it because they needed to understand what it felt like to lose everything you thought was safe. Because betrayal isn't just about cheating. It's about making someone question their own reality. Their own worth. And I gave them that gift. In full. With interest. Fall came quick that year. The air sharpened, the trees turned brittle at the edges, and my world felt cleaner somehow. Lighter. But not peaceful. There's a strange kind of emptiness that follows revenge. You get everything you wanted, and then you're just there. Standing in the aftermath, looking around, wondering if it was worth it. And it was. But still. One Sunday morning, I opened the mailbox and found a small envelope. No return address. Inside was a single photo, one I hadn't taken. It was me, sitting on my porch at night, beer in hand. No note. No explanation. Just a picture of myself, caught unaware. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was afraid, but because I realized something. I'd become the one in the shadows now. I was the ghost. That night, I took down the cameras I'd installed. Every single one. Pulled the wires, packed them up, threw them in the trash. I didn't want to watch anymore. I didn't want to know. Whatever came next, I'd face it head on. Because something had shifted in me. Not broken. Just changed. People think revenge ends when the other person suffers. But it doesn't. It ends when you stop needing to see it. I had reached that point. I saw Emily one last time. Not in person. On a screen. A coworker from my old job sent me a video link. Said, "Isn't this her?" It was a panel discussion on local health crisis. She wasn't a nurse anymore. She was working at a recovery center. Short hair. Dull smile. Talking about healing through accountability. I didn't feel anger. Not even bitterness. Just distance. Like she belonged to another lifetime. And maybe she did. I turned off the screen and went outside. The wind carried the scent of dry leaves. I took a deep breath. It was time to put everything away. I went to the storage unit. Opened her boxes one last time. I didn't expect to feel anything. But there it was, the anniversary card I wrote her 5 years ago. The one she never threw away. My handwriting still there, crooked and hopeful. I didn't cry. I just closed the lid and left everything behind. Literally. I didn't take the boxes back home. I left them there. Paid the next 6 months of rent on the unit, and walked out without the key. Let someone else open it down the line. Let them guess what story the contents belonged to. I was done telling it. Back home, I walked through every room. Quiet. Still. My house now. Not our house. Just mine. And it was enough. It had to be. It's been 9 months. Long enough for the dust to settle. The whisper stopped. The mailbox is quiet. The podcast episode got buried under newer scandals. Emily is a name no one says anymore. Even the old neighbors moved out. And me? I wake up every morning at 6 o'clock sharp. Run 2 miles. Make black coffee. Read the paper. Still drive that same old F-150. Still live in the same house. But I'm not the same man. People always ask, quietly, politely, if I'm seeing someone new. If I've moved on. As if moving on is something you can just cross off a list like laundry or taxes. Truth is, I haven't. And I'm not sure I will. But I've moved forward. There's a difference. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not sad either. I'm just aware of how fast things can break, of how little it takes to shatter something you thought was unshakable. Sometimes, I still think about that cigarette. The one I found outside the laundry room. That tiny little thing started all of it. One wrong breath. One careless flick of ash. Funny how something so small could split a life in two. I keep it. Framed. Right there on my workbench in the garage. A reminder of how far I let things go. Of what I did when I got pushed too far. Because here's the thing no one tells you about revenge. It changes you. Not just in the moment, but in your bones. You don't go back to who you were before. You can't. That version of you died the day you realized the truth. And the man who replaced him? Well, he doesn't smile the same way. Doesn't trust as easily. But he sleeps better. Not because he's at peace, but because he earned it. The last thing I ever received from Emily was a handwritten letter. Mailed from some out-of-state clinic. I didn't open it for weeks. Just left it on the counter, unopened. But eventually, Curiosity 1. It was short. 3 paragraphs. No excuses. No begging. No drama. Just honesty. She said she made choices she couldn't undo. That she thought I was weak. That she was wrong. That what I did, how I did it, made her understand something she never had to face before. She said she finally felt what betrayal really meant. I folded the letter and burned it in the fire pit out back. Watched the paper curl, black, and disappear. There was nothing else to keep. Now, every Sunday, I walk through the woods behind my house. Quiet place. Still untouched. I watch the leaves turn, fall, return again. Life ends, life begins. Not everything broken stays that way. But some things? They're better broken. Because when something snaps, really snaps, and you survive it, you don't just come out harder. You come out sharper. And you never forget the lesson that pain carved into your skin. Some people don't deserve forgiveness. Some betrayals don't deserve repair. And some men? They walk through fire. And don't come out clean. They come out free.